Welcome to Today in Woburn. I'm your host, Samantha Stone. And today we have Mayor Scott Galvin with us, as always, who answers all of our questions. We got a long list of stuff to go over because I missed last week. And we have our city councilor from Ward 4, Joe Demers, with us. And we have a special treat, a guest, Gerry, who's going to talk to us all about Horn Pond and its history and all kinds of good things. In our preparation, I learned a lot, so I'm excited to have Gerry join us today. Scott, welcome. Monday. It's
Monday. Good to be here, Samantha.
It feels like a Monday to me. Like I haven't
Yeah.
felt the Monday in quite a while. I don't know if it's the hazy skies or what's happening, but thankfully it's the end of Monday, so
Yep.
that's good. Well, hey, I've got a bunch of stuff I wanted to touch base with you on. Before I sort of dig into that, is there anything related to the COVID clinic or numbers or anything that you'd like to share with us?
Well, like in Woburn, like in Massachusetts, we're doing, I think, fairly well with the vaccine efforts. Um, we're at about 69% with at least one shot and 64% fully vaccinated. I did talk to the superintendent last week about the numbers of the vaccine numbers for Woburn students that are eligible for the vaccine. The middle school students and the high school students, and our numbers lag slightly. With our neighbors. We're about at the same as Reading. In communities like that, Winchester's far ahead of us. Lexington's far ahead of us. So we were talking about, would it be beneficial if we did a middle school and a high school vaccine clinic before school started? And we agree it would, but it's a little bit of a logistical struggle in the summertime. Because a lot of the kids are away on vacation, parents are away, so and the only vaccine they can get is Pfizer. They can't get the Moderna or the Johnson & Johnson. So that's a 2-shot program, but we're thinking of ways to pull it off. Probably later in the summer when people are starting to come home, or maybe the first week of September, even though that wouldn't get them fully vaccinated. We think it's that important. The way things are going, particularly with numbers are inching up a little. Woburn's had about 11 cases a week for the past 11 cases every 2 weeks for the past 3 weeks. So it's nowhere near what it used to be, but it is, it's slowly creeping up because of the variant and still because some people don't want to get vaccinated. And just to give you an example, Samantha, that we've done 3 or 4 in a row at City Hall on Thursday night. The first one was about 15 people came in. We're giving a $30 gift card away. First one was about 15. Then we had 9, and last week we had 3. So the numbers, that's people right now, the ones who want to get vaccinated have been vaccinated. So it's gonna probably, we'll keep pushing at it and going, but at a certain point, it's going to take something more to get those people who are not vaccinated.
Good. Well, thank you for the update. That's good to know. Appreciate it. It's definitely something we still have to continue to monitor and
Absolutely
certainly do all those things. So thank you for making it so available. I learned something last couple of days chatting with some folks that there's the elevator that is in the back of the Woburn Center lot that sort of comes out at Brickyard. I actually always thought that was Brickyard's elevator. I didn't realize that's city-owned property. Is that correct?
It is city-owned property.
And it's currently not working. But there's no signage or anything on it. So I'm assuming that someone knows it's not working and is in process of being repaired. You probably don't know this off the top of your head, but I thought I would ask.
Well, it's been out. It's been out. I think since around 4th of July, and they had ordered one of the control panels is burnt out, and DPW ordered it. It's on backlog. It's hard to get a lot of the equipment, so unfortunately, it's out of our hands right now. We also, as you know, we had an issue over at the library where their elevator's been down for a couple of weeks now. It's the same thing, and it's hard to get the parts in to fix these things because everybody's going after them. But the library, they think they're going to have it fixed tomorrow.
Right.
Not as optimistic about the elevator at the Brickyard. As soon as we get the part in, we'll definitely get it fixed. But we are aware of it, and it was it's a long story, which we don't really have time to talk about, why the elevator belongs to us and not the Brickyard, but it's there. It helps. It certainly serves its purpose to help handicapped who need access, equal access down to that, the pocket park, which is beautiful. So
It is.
works.
It is a beautiful area there. I don't know if there's a way to get some signage on it. Maybe that might just let people know that it actually is in process and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
broken
we
kind of
certainly
thing.
can, I thank you for tipping me off that might be one of the questions, but
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Just for those of you listening, I actually almost never let Scott know when I'm going to ask, but
Yeah.
this was one of those questions I felt was somewhat obscure and probably wasn't going to be top of mind, and we wanted an answer to. So I did send Scott.
Which is right. Yeah, I don't get, but yeah, one of the things we do want to stress, and this is, and I say this, the Facebook groups are great because they do, spur some conversation, but if anybody has any issues in the city, they should either, contact me, or there's a Q alert system that will go directly to the departments that the issue takes place. And so it's pretty convenient. Just go on the city's website to report a concern, and it'll go right to those different departments that are responsible for addressing issues.
Great. Thanks for that.
It's Q alert.
Yeah. How do you spell that?
It's just Q. Like
it's a Q alert, like standing in line queue.
Right. Question.
Okay. I thought you were saying hue like a color palette hue, and I was like,
yeah.
I don't think I get that right. Thank you.
Yeah. When you go on the city's website, it'll say report a concern.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. That's awesome. One of the other things I wanted to chat a little bit about, we haven't really talked much about this. I know that Northeast Metro Tech, the school, which is our public school for, hands-on training. And that's where, my son went and studied metal fabrication, for example. We have, all different kinds of things that school building needs to be rebuilt. There has been a plan to do that, and that is shared across 11 or 13 or something like that. A large number of cities contribute to that. Is that something that Woburn is financially supporting in any way for the new school building, or has that not yet been determined?
It has not been determined. We have met with the superintendent. We've met with a couple of principals. Deb Davis, who does a great job as the school committee rep. We've been in touch with her. It's an expensive project, but knowing the importance of trade schools, it's something that's in concept certainly supportive of. We need to find out where the final numbers are. My first go around was that would add about $1 million of debt service to the city for the construction. So like I said, we're definitely supportive of the need and the concept of trade schools and what they offer to our students, the alternative education, particularly in this day with the advanced manufacturing and the importance of trade. So we are supportive of our school. We just need to get our hands around the numbers a little bit more and discuss it with the city council and go from there. But it will definitely add upwards to $1 million a year in debt service to the cities.
Okay. And
growing.
Just to be super clear, so there's no confusion, when we talk about the budget for schools in Woburn, which we often do, this expense to support this school is outside of that budget.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I thought that was the case. I just want to make sure. I know sometimes there's some confusion about that. So,
yeah.
Thank you for doing. Having been a parent who has attended many.
And Samantha, just to go further, the regional vocation, their annual budget is outside of the funding process for the schools. It does not include that. And we also do have, as Joe knows from his work on the school committee and also city council, the Essex Agricultural is becoming quite an alternative trade school, and the numbers have skyrocketed there for us. And the funding for that is outside of the traditional school funding too. But it's again, that offers a different trade school, and it's becoming very, very popular.
That's great to know. Thank you. I don't know very much about it. Having been a parent at Northeast, I can tell you the school building definitely needs to be addressed. They've got some. It's been neglected for some time, but I know those things are expensive and huge projects, particularly when we're talking about rebuilding trade school environments. It's not just a classroom, but we're rebuilding where equipment stored, and there's a lot of complexities around doing that. So. I want to talk a little bit about, since we're talking about construction, there has been a lot of questions about how we prioritize what sidewalks get rebuilt or fixed or added within the city of Woburn. And I don't want to go into any specific streets and things, but there's been enough questions that have come in around how we prioritize. If you can give us some insight into how that's done, I think that would be helpful. In particular, people have raised this issue in the context of being able to get a wheelchair through, or someone on a walker being able to get through safely through an environment.
Well, a couple things to answer your question. We have been, for the most part, focusing our efforts on the streets to try to spend as much of our paving dollars as we can on getting streets done because that is where the liability sometimes lies at the street. So we work primarily on that. Whenever you do a street which is abuts a main road or crosses over another intersection, we're always fixing the handicap ramps. And you'll see, if you go back and see the work, there's been significant work done on the handicap ramps. The passage, we haven't been as proactive, I would say, on the passageways on a lot of the sidewalks. One of the things that we are doing, Samantha, working with the handicap commission, the disability commission with Tim Donovan, as in the city council, Joe would tell you, we submitted a $25,000 appropriation to do a needs analysis study, which will cover public ways, sidewalks, public buildings. It'll be an update of the one that we did back in the I think in the 90s. And there was also significant grant funding available to supplement that. So we'll be looking at that and looking at the sidewalks. But it's a major expense, and generally we've been doing patchwork on sections of sidewalks when they again on the main roads. A lot of people have requests for sidewalks on the back roads, which we'd love to do, but when the street traffic on there is not as busy, we're really prioritizing on those walkways that are either coming or going to the train station, a bus, or schools. That's what the priority's been to fix those.
Great. Excellent. And if someone has a space that they're concerned about, either they can't get through at all or things, is it best to report that to traffic or to the disability commission, or both?
I think they could do both. They could do
Okay.
the traffic. They could send it to the traffic commission, the disability, and also to like I said, the Q alert, and we'll look at that. And some of these, Samantha, are long standing. Like if you drive around Woburn, there are situations where there are telephone poles that we can't remove. We can't move them, and we're limited to what we can do. Telephone poles that impede the access for either handicap or even for someone who's not in a wheelchair. So those are very difficult to address, and we have situations like that too.
Okay, great. And they're difficult to address because even if we wanted to move the telephone pole, moving it would be on someone's private property potentially,
Yep.
or right. These aren't trivial things.
And we'd have to get the owner of the telephone pole. We don't own the telephone poles. That Eversource owns the telephone poles. We own the light fixtures. We bought those years ago. We bought the light fixtures, which allowed us to then reinvest in LEDs to save tons of money. But that's the telephone poles don't belong to us, but the light fixtures do.
Okay, it's good. So much complexity goes into running the day-to-day. I appreciate you answering these questions. One more sort of, I would say this is a very icky topic, but I'm going to ask it and then we'll transition to some more positive things. So there are lots, I see and hear, and people send me directly complaints about rats across the city. We're like every other city in Massachusetts and probably across the country. Rats exist. We're in a city. There are, what is this? The city is not going to solve the rat problem and reduce rat populations, but is there enough need for us to do an education campaign or maybe get discounting on traps or services to help residents, since it's sort of a widespread problem? Or is there any discussion by the health department on anything we might be able to do to help residents deal with the problem? Because I know the city isn't going to be able to mitigate rats.
Yeah, the city can't go onto private property to mitigate the rat problem. What the Board of Health does focus on is if there's someone in the area who might be contributing to it, they'll go talk to that person if they have a wood pile or breeding grounds for, rats, they'll go talk to them to have them address it. If there's a construction project, anybody who's doing a construction project is always required to abate their property to prevent rats from going off onto their neighbors. And again, there's no magic bullet for the issue with rats. They've been around longer than we have. They're extremely adaptable, and the best that we can do is manage it. And Jack does have stuff. The Board of Health has information on their website. It's an issue. I've got to be honest with you. I haven't heard about it as much this summer as we had a couple of years ago. We had an extreme issue, but the past 2 summers we haven't heard it quite as much. Although that doesn't mean we haven't had instances where people who have had problems call. So
good. Well, that's really helpful context for you.
Yep.
August is around the corner. Do we have any updates in timing for fireworks? I know the Kiwanis Club was thinking about doing something in August. Is that still likely to happen?
The Kiwanis Club has filed, I think, I want to say September. They filed. Joe, Joe might be able to answer. I think they filed a special events permit with the city council to do fireworks and a number of bands. But Joe would be the appropriate person at this point, right, Joe?
Yeah, we have received that. I believe we did expedite that approval. Off the top of my head, I cannot remember the date because we did have a litany of requests for special event permits at our last meeting that we passed, but that's something I can get you.
Yeah, that would be great. And hey, the good news
Before my
is
segment.
it's moving forward.
It's definitely moving.
That's was really more the point in likely in September. So that's great, good news. I love that.
They've already asked me for double payment on the fireworks because they didn't do it last year. So we may oblige if the city council goes along with Joe. We may oblige.
I love it. The lake that I have a second home on does a fireworks show every year, and it's paid for by donation, and it's worth every penny. So I'm sure we're excited for that. Couple of deadlines coming up I just want people to know about. So there's a waste management scholarship that's coming up July 30th. If you have a student who's going to college or university, it's a great, super simple application for people to fill out. And then Fall City League Soccer registration is at the end of the month, the 31st as well. So I just want to make sure people knew about those dates.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah. Scott, this has been great. Thank you. I also want to just personally thank you. I know you signed up for the blood drive that's coming up in August. I very much appreciate that.
Yeah. That'll be good. I'll make sure I drink plenty of fluids and
we'll have lots of snacks and all the juice and all the things that need to happen then. But I'm really excited about that. We actually have 40 people who are registered, and we have space for 9 or 10 more. So we're in really good shape to help support the Red Cross, who's in desperate need. So thank you to you and everyone else who has been signing up. It's really great support for the community. So appreciate that. Great. Well, thank you, Scott, for joining us. I'm going to have Joe pop in, and we'll talk about more than just fireworks with Joe Demers, who's our city councilor for Ward 4.
Thanks, Samantha.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I don't know if you can top fireworks, but we'll give it a
I'll do my very best.
So I am directionally challenged, and I have a very hard time looking at the maps and knowing exactly what is where. But generally speaking, Ward 4 is off of 95, right?
Yep.
Why don't you describe it? Because
I'm gonna make it seem even more directionally challenged because my ward is a little bit of a, it's a little bit of an obtuse and acute shape, I guess you could say. So what Ward 4 maintains is, so say you are at the 95 Rotary. Yeah. So if on the north Woburn side of the 95 Rotary, I have Alfred Street to School Street, and then down School Street to Mishawam. Everything from there down Mishawam to Beach Street and Clinton, and then Beach Street all the way up to the White School, and then down Montvale to Everett Street. And Everett Street comes right behind the Walnut Hill parking lot, which is the parking lot up by the Bolodrome. Okay. And then when you get to downtown, if you're looking straight across to all the shops in Woburn Center, I have the side that runs from we'll say the Mahoney's Barbershop and National Music, all the way down to the 7-Eleven at Franklin Street. And then coming back that way, I have everything from Salem on the opposite side. So that would be Davis Street, Church Street, all the way down on Main Street back to 95 Rotary. So that was just a little around the world in Ward 4, but it's an interesting shape and an interesting ward. We have a lot of a little bit of everything. We have residential. We have a lot of neighborhoods that are ripe for redevelopment. We have the downtown area, so I deal a lot with small businesses. So it's a little bit a mix of everything here in Woburn and Ward 4.
Well, thank you. You actually did a very good job because I can picture it. And if I can picture it, Joe, everybody can figure this out.
It's like a Z with a zero on it.
I love it. That's actually really helpful, and I love that. And I imagine when the wards were formed, there was some attempt to sort of have residential and commercial. It's probably why the shapes are a little funny.
So I think that too, and it also is subject to the census every 10 years, making sure that we have equal amount of population in each ward and each precinct, or at least close to, with a little bit of a deviation on the margin of error, I guess you could call it. And sometimes that makes wards have a funky shape depending upon development or folks moving to another side of town, and then leaving some sides of town heavy on population where we have to move the wards around a little bit, and that's coming up as well. So that's something Ward 4 could change again.
Yeah, well, we'll look forward to hearing how that all shakes out. One of the folks in the ward who lives on Montvale Lane said that it wasn't listed on the ward map, but it is Ward 4. Yep. I'm assuming, I don't know if it's one of the unnamed streets on the ward map or if it's just.
So I saw that question on Facebook, and I reached out to City Clerk Higgins just to ask, and it's more of the street being so small and the map being the best digitalization we can. It dropped from the map, but the actual true attested map at City Hall of all the wards, as well as the list of voters and list of streets book, Montvale Lane is there, is a recognized street, and they do get equal representation by their aldermen.
I love it. Well, that's great, and that those things happen when we try and take maps and easily visible. It's been just about it. Next month will be a year that you have.
Yeah, September. September will be a year. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, September. I was thinking August.
September. We interviewed in August, and then I was appointed in September to fill the seat vacated by Alderman Anderson.
Great, thank you. I think that's why I had August in my head, because it was the things. And so you look back now and you look at where we're at. What are some of the things that you're really excited about that as a ward you sort of managed through? And what are some of the more common challenges you see that still need to be addressed?
Sure. I mean, the everyday challenge of an alderman is, constituent services and making sure that we address the issues that face residents. I've gotten everything from paving requests to requests to trim trees that are on city property, to, rat issues, flooding issues, anything that can be mitigated with public infrastructure or the use of our public departments in our city of Woburn. That's something that's a challenge that faces an alderman and the residents of the ward every day. Something I'm looking forward to, and I think this is as a whole, a city as a whole, is that, while we have gone through the trials and tribulations of a pandemic and face many challenges, we have the opportunity now to create major opportunities within the city with the American Recovery Act funding that's coming in and additional funding from the state to make a lot of capital investments in our future, whether that's investing more money in our schools to make sure that we make much needed upgrades that were kind of put off to the side due to the fact that we lacked funds for capital investment. And then a lot of infrastructure capital investment across the city, and making sure that my job being making sure that Ward 4 is represented within those long range visions and plans with terms of capital investment in roads, sidewalks, changing intersections and doing new signalization, stop signs, crosswalks, everything. Just down to the nuts and bolts of being an alderman. And I'm looking forward to those opportunities to do things, better. And then also, we have our fire station being built. They broke ground and they are doing the foundation, I believe, right now. And I live right nearby, so I can keep a good close eye on it. But that's something to be excited about, not only for our fire department, but a sense of pride within the city that we're upgrading our infrastructure and having a facility that our fire staff really deserve.
That's great. I'm super excited about that. That's going to be a wonderful addition to the city. There's at least one school, I think so the Wyman School is in Ward 4.
Sure.
Is a building that is currently being used as some city offices, if I'm correct. Is that correct?
So it is still under the auspices of the school department. They have not turned over the Wyman School. When I was on the school committee and the chairman of the school committee in 2018, we had a lot of talks about what ifs. Do we make it a centralized location for our central office for the administration of the schools? At one point, we had the maintenance staff and facilities was located there. I think what I'd like to see happen, and I'm sure I'll be having discussions with Mayor Galvin in the future on this, would be some sort of model similar to what they utilized in terms of public input with the Hurled Elementary School, where we'll get the input from the residents. It is considered an asset. While the Hurled Elementary School was preserved under Article 97 for open space, the Wyman School is still considered an asset to the city. So there might be opportunities for a mixed use where a developer might be able to come in and preserve the use of the existing castle look at the Wyman School for maybe some residential units. And then maybe the city can utilize the newer version, I guess, or newer side of the Wyman, which is considerably old, but it's still the newer version, and maybe rehab that for some city office space, because we are running out of space to secure our records, our vital records for the city, as well as growing departments and growing needs in the city may need some more office space. So that's something that I have in mind, but obviously always welcome for any suggestions from the residents. I do not plan on signing off on anything until we hear from the feedback from the residents as well. So
that's great. Well, I just love the front of that building. The back of it is,
Mhm.
old,
Yep.
block and dues, but the front of the building, I'm so glad that we will make every
Right.
effort to maintain the integrity of that, and that's a wonderful piece of our history there, and it's just pretty to drive by. There were some questions that came in that were specific to. So there was a question about repaving Ellen Road. I don't actually know if you have that information, but
I do.
Oh, perfect. Look at you, Joe. You're
I
on
do.
top
Yeah.
of the
I
ball.
spoke with Assistant Superintendent at the DPW, Lenny Burnham, today about that particular issue, just to get an update. And what I will tell the residents is that help is on the way with regards to paving. While it might not be in this calendar year, it is on the agenda on our repaving road system. What they want to make sure, and what we do in Woburn on every road that we're thinking about repaving, is first we look at all the utilities to make sure that all the work that is necessary to be done is taken care of. And then we make sure that if it's any infrastructure that the city does, including the drainage that was done over there, we want to make sure that it's running at an optimal function, I guess, or working properly, to make sure that anything that we need to get in at can be taken care of before we pave again, because we don't want to tear up brand new pavement. So that is probably going to be taken care of on the 2022 list once all the utilities are squared away over on Ellen Road. So that's a plus. And just in general, that happens everywhere. The city of Woburn has a grading system on our roadways. Whenever I get phone calls from residents about their roadways, I reach out to the DPW and the city engineer who maintains the program. If those roads haven't been graded or scored yet, I make sure that they get out there to give them a grade or score so that we can get there. Another example of a road that wasn't able to get done this cycle, Knollwood, up behind the Wyman School. All the other streets were taken care of, but because National Grid needs to do some gas line work on Knollwood, that road work was delayed until the next cycle. So there is a method to the madness here in Woburn when it comes to paving roads. And I think the residents will be a lot more appreciative of the way we do it now than having it be political influence or whatnot determining what roads get done. I think this is based on need. And the mayor and his DPW and engineering team do a very good job of making sure that every ward gets a little bit of attention on the paving roads list each year.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for the update.
Yep.
There's a question about trash pickup. Specifically, the question came in about Lowell Street, although I know that that's probably a challenge in many
Sure.
places. And certainly our waste management has some responsibility, but I don't know if you've thought about doing cleanups in particular areas with the
So
community.
I always think outside the box. So I'd be willing to start a volunteer opportunity if folks want to come down and pitch in. We can all meet at the Wyman, the Hurled Wyman, and then do a Lowell Street cleanup day. I will do my best to make sure that the school department and the DPW on areas and lands that they're responsible for will maintain those areas. But it also is it's a community awareness where, we need to make sure that all trash is secured. This kind of dovetails into our conversation about rats. One thing that I'm interested in is looking at ways that we can enforce types of securing of our trash in Woburn with regards to people just throwing bags out on the side of the road a few days before trash day, and the animals can get at that. Whether that's an awareness, whether that's a bulletin that can go out to residents. I know some areas of Ward 4 downtown area, there's concerns about some of the tenant occupied properties. So maybe that's reaching out to the landlords to kind of, make sure that they realize that they need to be good neighbors as well and hold their tenants accountable with regards to trash and making sure that their trash is secured. So it's something that we can do a lot of awareness. Big picture items, I think maybe looking outside the box. We could look at other ways that cities and towns have utilized uniform trash barrel size. So that maybe we can get some low cost purchase options for the residents, or see how much over a long period of time, whether we could invest in those to give out to the residents so that everybody has ample trash receptacles. But at the end of the day, it is the responsibility of the residents of Woburn to make sure that their trash is secure. And I think if everybody pitches in together and works together, we can solve it. But anytime there's a food source, no matter what it will be, there will be rodents. And we do our very best. And I know the Board of Health has done their very best. They've been inundated with the COVID response. So they might, need a little bit more support from us with regards to the rodent issue, but it's definitely something I'm willing to look into and make sure that we address those concerns.
Yeah, I definitely have seen, we've played with different types of trash barrels in my own home,
Mhm.
some that seem to get broken into, others don't for whatever reason, even though they sort of seem like them so material. I know metal cans are often recommended for, pest control and things. And so
Right.
it would be great. I mean, I would definitely buy barrels if we had some sort of discounted program. It's, because we are
Yep.
buying enough suppliers.
And Waste Management has been great to work with,
Yeah.
and we've had
Great.
phenomenal contracts with them, and they take everything.
They
Except
really
except
do.
for-
We
except-
are very lucky.
Except for anything that might have an environmentally hazardous chemical or component to it, they will take anything on the side of the curb. So we do have a great relationship with them, and I'm sure some sort of public-private partnership could be looked at to help us have more options to solve the problem.
Yeah, and I agree with you. We are very blessed that the waste management takes as much as it does. I know folks in many other communities are very restricted about what they're allowed to put in the trash, and I don't know what I would do, because apparently my family eats enough for like 8 households worth in those towns, because I always have.
Oh, and you know what?
Trash.
I totally understand it too when folks might forget trash day, or might be away during trash day and they have trash. It's just, you got to make sure that you have that secured. Whether, if your trash barrel doesn't have a cover on it, put a piece of plywood and a cinder block on top just to make sure that it's secured when you're not there. I mean, it's just I think everybody can pitch in and do a little bit of a better job, but when we're losing places for these places to live due to development, sometimes they go elsewhere and it's a new problem for folks. So we need to make sure that we mediate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Last little thing that I want to chat with you about, and then I'm going to bring Gerry on. I want to talk about 12895 sound barriers.
Sure.
I know that this is, I can't imagine being one of them.
I smirk at that question only because you've referred to it as a little thing.
Yeah, it's not a little thing. For the people who live there, that is a big
Right.
thing. And
That
I can't imagine being one of those folks. I also know it's largely outside the city's control.
So way of background on how long that I've been involved in the issue regarding noise barriers. I started working with then Representative Jim Dwyer back in 2009. And I had known about, because I was very involved in just watching civics and community government then, and I had ran for alderman myself in 2007, right out of college. But I knew that was being an issue over here and that it was being addressed or trying to be addressed. But what happened was the reps and senator before Ken Donnelly and Jim Dwyer had gotten an amendment passed within something called the Transportation Bond Bill. And what that is, and I'll give it to you just straightforward here, it's almost like a Christmas wish list that your kids would fill out. And then you and your spouse talking about how much money to spend, or Santa would spend, okay? And what the real nutshell of it is if only 12 of 550 projects get funded that year, you then have to prioritize. And if the state doesn't prioritize it, you then have another 200 legislators fighting to get their projects funded. So unfortunately, the idea that was going to be taken care of didn't really have the explanation or background as to how the system had worked. Okay. So then over the course of time, Woburn's sound barriers on 95 were on what was called the Type 2 noise barrier list. And that was basically projects that people wanted to get done due to the fact that it was a quality of life issue. So the Type 2 sound barrier list was there, but when the government in our state changed from Governor Patrick to Governor Baker, the Baker administration and Mass DOT really put those elective sound barriers or quality of life sound barriers on the back burner. And then what Representative Dwyer, Senator Ken Donnelly, and Representative Jay Kaufman at the time did was they fought to get it included in the 93-95 interchange project for the reconstruction of that interchange. Here comes our next problem. That keeps getting pushed back, just like the New Boston Street Bridge and the Montville Ave widening was for years. So it really is a team effort, I think, between the residents, myself as their alderman, and the other councilors on the city council, and our legislative delegation to emphasize to the state and to Mass DOT that this is really a quality of life issue. And I understand the neighbors' concerns and their frustrations, because I've driven by plenty of sound barriers that have hundreds upon hundreds yards of wetlands or greenery in between them and the next nearest neighborhood. And it is actually pretty, it's demoralizing to those folks that they don't have that attention being paid to them. I'll go even as far as saying, the reason why it was considered Type 2 was because the noise study that was done over there wasn't high enough. Well, that data is almost 20 years old. I think maybe that those neighbors deserve another noise study and some more attention from some new people, because the administration at Mass DOT has probably changed over so many times that folks in Boston at a bureaucratic office might not understand how close these folks really are, because at some points you'd be able to throw a baseball across to the other side of 95. So it is something on my mind. It is something that I'll be working with the legislative delegation to get back on the legislature and Mass DOT's map. And I'll do my very best. But it is going to be the legislative delegation that really needs to push it to make sure that a state agency actually comes out here and takes care of our residents.
Good. Well, thank you for all that context. I think that's really helpful for us to understand where it's been and how we got where we are. And it sounds like residents can continue to push for maybe another noise test, can push to consider to make sure it's on the legislative priorities and
Sure.
and to have their voice heard that way. Great. Joe, this has been fantastic. Anything else you want to share? I know we have elections coming up in November, which feels like forever away,
Right.
but isn't that far? Anything that you want to make sure your residents in your ward know about you and your intentions moving forward?
Yeah, no, I am a candidate for election. I say that election and not reelection because I was appointed last year. But I hope that through my hard work, dedication, responsiveness, and being somebody that you can trust, I'll be honest with you. If I can't help you, I can't help you. I'll do my very best to find somebody who can assist you if I can't. But I think that type of straightforward representation, responsiveness to concerns and calls, and then be willing to discuss anything. Samantha, you've known me for a while now, and
Love it.
I'll talk Woburn until the day is long. So
I
it's
noticed you're wearing Woburn orange. I
well,
like
yes,
that.
I wore a bright color so that I didn't look too sunburned. But no, but I really take this job seriously. I love being the city councilor in Ward 4, and I do it all for the interests of the residents of Ward 4. I know that sounds cliche, but I don't get anything out of this other than the thrill of representing my neighbors and my community on the city council, and hopefully doing my very best to make sure that their best interests as taxpayers are addressed, and that Woburn remains an affordable and quality place to raise a family, grow up, and work in. So I'd appreciate their support in the November election.
Great. Joe, thank you so much for making yourself available through Today in Woburn and all
Yeah,
the
no
other
problem.
ways that you do. Always appreciate you. Always respond right away when I reach out. So it's
I
great.
appreciate it, and thank you for the opportunity. This is a great avenue for everybody to meet their elected officials and their city officials, and understand, we're all here to help each other and make sure that Woburn continues being a great place.
I love it. Excellent. Well, welcome, Gerry. You've been so patient as we've been talking about all kinds of really important city things. Gerry Kehoe, I'm so happy to have you with us. It feels weird to introduce you as the ex-chair of Wren, but I'd like to think of you as the, knower of all things Horn Pond.
Well, yeah, I kind of am.
Yeah, I love it. So before we start talking too much about sort of the history of the pond and some of the wonderful things, tell us a little bit about your favorite parts of the pond. One of the things that I always forget is it's 500 acres. Like I
Yeah.
think the path that goes around, and that's sort of where I spend most of my time, but it's quite an extensive property.
Oh, it is. It really is. My favorite area, to tell you the truth, is probably walking around the lagoon, the smaller pond, because it's quieter. It's
Yeah.
not paved. That's where you find more wildlife. You find more flowers. You find more interesting things.
I have to admit, every time I've done that little loop there, I see wonderful birds in particular.
Oh yeah, the bird life down there is incredible. In fact, if you've ever been on the Facebook page called Horn Pond Photographic Society, you will see hundreds and hundreds of photographs of birds taken at Horn Pond, because there are a lot of bird photographers out there, a lot of birders who are photographers. People from Arlington Birds come to Horn Pond just because of the bird life that we have. So I'm not a birder myself. I appreciate looking at them, but I'm more into the wildflowers and the trees. That's my gig.
Well, I'm glad that's your gig because it's gotten you to learn a lot. Horn Pond, as many of us know, but not everybody, was not always called Horn Pond. There was
Nope.
a Native American name for it.
The Native American name is Innitou, Innitou. And in Algonquin, it means mirror of the spirit.
I actually think that's quite nice. I like that. When did
Yeah.
the name get changed? Like when did you
Well,
start calling it Horn Pond?
during the time of the Middlesex Canal, it was called the Lake in the Woods, because it was kind of like a resort, because it was the halfway point between Boston and Lowell. And we had a rooming house, and entertainment, where Hudson Grove is now. There was a raised dance floor. You could take a boat out to the island, and it had a bowling alley, bowling alley out there, and like a snack bar type restaurant, small restaurant, like a snack bar. But the reason the bowling alley was out on the island was because at the time, the number of pins they used was illegal.
Oh, that's very interesting.
So they put it out on the island. Of course, depending on what season, how dry the season is, not necessarily an island, because there is a sandbar that runs from the island across to the inside of Horn Pond to the parkway back there. So it's technically not really an island all year long. Right now it is, because water is very high, so it's definitely an island.
Oh, that's really funny. I never knew. I'd heard that there was a bowling alley in there, but I never
Yeah,
really understood.
just a one lane
it.
thing.
That's,
Yeah.
That's super
Yeah.
fun. And it was an ice house at one point too, right? A
There,
commercial ice
yeah,
house?
in 1854, they started harvesting ice from the pond. There were ice houses at the southerly end, down where the our water treatment plant is now. At the time, there was a railroad spur that came in that brought coal to the pump house for
Mhm.
pumping the water, and took out the ice, shipped it into Boston, and it was shipped from there all over the world. We had ice from Horn Pond go as far as Asia.
So who knows what kind of martinis and things were being
Oh,
made
yeah.
with our
Yeah.
ice, right?
Yeah. And then on the northerly end of the pond, that was a smaller company of ice houses. And they cut ice there at that end up until just before World War II, probably late 30s, early, 39, 40-ish. And right now, what we have there is a place called Ice House Park
Mhm.
in commemoration of that time with the ice houses. In fact, my husband's grandfather drove a team that hauled ice, because when you had an ice box, the ice was on top because cold air falls down. You had the where you put the ice on top, and you had to change the ice very frequently, every day in the summer, every other day in the milder weather. So he would deliver ice. He would drive the team and deliver ice. You had a card that had like a pointer, like a children's game
Yep.
on it, that you put in the window to tell your iceman how much ice you needed.
Oh, that's so interesting.
They would cut off the appropriate size block, pick it up with these large tongs, put it over their shoulder, literally walk into your kitchen, put it in your ice box for you, and leave the bill on the table and leave. Because your door was never locked. It was your neighbor's. Your neighbor was the one that was delivering the ice to you, because you didn't work long distance away from your home. Everybody worked in the area that they lived in. So the Iceman knew everybody, and everybody knew the Iceman. So it was no big deal.
I love it. There's a song in there somewhere, Gerry. I don't know what it is, but everybody
There
knows
is, huh?
There's got to be. One of the other areas you talked about photography earlier, that is, I think, one of the most photographed areas of the pond. I know I often pause to take a photo, because the Angel of Hope statue, which is a memorial to children lost too soon. And there's a lovely tribute to many, many families and individuals there. There are what I think are openings for additional memorial bricks to be placed.
Oh yes, there are. There's quite a few empty places for the bricks. I really have no idea who you would contact for that. I was not involved in that, so I don't really know who did that.
No worries. We'll figure it
No,
out. We'll let folks know.
it's not the only memorial in that spot. Behind the Angel of Hope, closer to the water, there is a bench and a post with a sign on it, in a memorial to a Woburn resident who was lost in the Twin Towers on 9/11. Not many people know that we had,
I actually did not know that was there.
that
I'm gonna
we,
now go
that
look
it
for
was a fellow that lived down the other end of the pond on Lake Ave. He still has family down there. And he was in the Twin Towers. He wasn't due to work that day. Someone called in sick and he went instead. And he was lost in the towers. So we have our own 9/11 memorial down there also. And with the 20th anniversary coming up this September, I think it would be nice if we had some little thing
think that would
to
be
commemorate
lovely.
that down there.
I think that sounds lovely. I didn't even know it was there, so I'm gonna certainly make my way to look.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize it's there because it's kind of overshadowed by the Angel of Hope because more people are involved in that. More people can relate to the Angel of Hope than the 9/11 memorial, but it is there. And
It's there and it's important. So
it is. It's very
we-
important. Very important.
we don't need and should
And there
not-
are memorials all over the pond to veterans, to prominent citizens, really around the entire, all the way around the pond, the 2 miles around the pond. And of course, we have plenty of benches. Benches are all dedicated to people that that people have. My family purchased a bench down on the causeway to my mother-in-law and my father, because both of them loved walking the pond. My mother-in-law grew up here, and my husband grew up here. I've been here for 50 years, and my kids are growing up here, and now my grandson's growing up here. So that's kind of how I know all the history.
Well, I love it, and what a wonderful tribute! I'm sure when you sit and you enjoy the views on that bench, you can feel your family, your lost ones.
Oh, yes.
You in some way.
Yes.
So it's a lovely, lovely tribute to them. Ren, as an organization, has hosted cleanups around Horn Pond. I think many of us don't realize how much of that work is done by volunteers to keep it
Oh, yeah.
upkeep. Certainly, our DPW department does a lot of work, but
Yep,
there's
they do.
more
They
than
do.
enough for everyone.
Yep.
Are
And-
those Saturdays still happening? Or
Yep. On most Saturdays, they walk around the pond. First, they meet at Ice House Park. It's in the summertime, they meet at 7 a.m. It's a little early for a lot of people. And then
It's a little
later
cooler,
on,
right?
yeah, in the winter time, once the time changes, they meet at 8 o'clock. But they meet at Ice House Park and they do the loop up the parkway and down Water Street. They do that first, and then they walk counterclockwise around the pond. And there are still people that do this just about every Saturday.
I'm so grateful to them that they.
Yeah.
keep that
And
going.
if you walk around the lagoon, a lot of times you will see people carrying a bag with them, picking up trash. But one of the things, I mean, there's barrels everywhere. You might have to walk a little bit, especially around the lagoon, to find a barrel. But if people just carried their trash with them and put them in the barrel, there would hardly be anything for people to be picking up every Saturday morning.
Yeah, I think it's. I'm grateful to them for doing it, but we could all do our part by putting them out of work, right?
That would be nice. Yes, that would be nice.
Be a nice thing. But for those who do want to join, I know I hear lots of people who are interested in doing pickups and trash. This is a great opportunity. Meet the team on Saturday. Or
Oh, yeah.
come on your own time and bring a little
And
bag.
and during the school year, if any young person wants to do it, they and get hours for
Their yes hours.
their yes hours. That's right. Their yes hours for their extra tassel. All they have to do is bring the papers with them, and there's always someone that can sign for them. Rodney Flynn mostly is the one who signs those papers for them. But anytime.
Those who are listening and watching who don't know what yes hours are, perhaps you don't have kids who are in the school system yet, or just haven't heard about it. It's community service hours is effectively what it is. And you sign off if you get a certain number of hours when you graduate, as Gerry mentioned, there's a special service tassel that is given in recognition. They also have hours that use towards National Honor Societies and some other
it
stuff.
stands for youth engaged in service is what
I
they're,
did not know what it stood for. So, Gerry,
Yes.
I learned something from you today. That's fantastic. I love it. Well, as we wrap up our time here today, Gerry, I think one of the things that we are blessed with this wonderful environment right here in Woburn that we all get to use and has fabulous different types of recreation. We've got some Horn Pond concerts coming up if the rain will stay away, and all kinds of things. As stewards of this habitat, what would you like us to know to make sure we continue to take good care of it?
Well, one of the things that a lot of people do around Horn Pond is they walk their dogs. And if they could please pick up after their dogs, that is, and I'm afraid some people pick it up, put it in a little plastic bag that's provided, and then they throw it in the bushes.
Oh.
Do you believe it? Yes.
If you're gonna go through all the effort of
Yeah.
putting it in a bag, take the bag.
Yeah.
with you.
Take the bag with you. There are, even if you're walking the lagoon, there is a barrel over by the Red Bridge. You can just carry it for a couple of minutes until you get to the Red Bridge and drop it in the barrel over there.
Yeah, that's a really good reminder, and thank you. And one of the things I think people don't realize, not only is it kind of smell and unattractive and attract flies and things, but it actually affect the water quality, right?
Oh, it does.
Right?
It does.
There's processes and animal waste that we want to avoid.
I know one of our biggest problems that we have down the pond, as far as that goes, is the geese, the Canada geese.
Yeah.
They make a mess. They really do. They make a mess.
Do.
They
And
really
we
do.
can't stop
Yes.
them from doing that. That's
Well,
something we can't control. Or is there something
Yeah, we
do?
can try and chase them back into the water. Keep
Yeah.
them in the water.
Yeah. Oh, I love
But
it.
yeah.
Well, Gerry, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate.
Oh,
all this
you're
wonderful
very welcome.
history about
And
this.
I just wanted to mention that the Jennifer is doing a short program with me in the studio that will be uploaded with a lot of photographs and some history and some flora and fauna. And also I do a full length program that goes very deeply into the history, geology, the animals, the plant life, everything about Horn Pond. And any group that would like to, have the presentation, all they needs to contact me at my my email, which is mothernature@rcn.com.
That is
I
the
thought it
best
was
email
I
address.
thought if it was a very appropriate, and I've changed carriers back and forth over the years, and I've always had Mother Nature. And that's the first thing I ask when someone wants to give me this great deal to change
I keep my
carriers.
email address because
Yes.
it's fabulous.
This is my email. I need to have this email. And if they can't give it to me, then
Well, good
they
for
don't get
you.
the business.
I love it, and I can't wait to see the show where you go into detail and share all that wonderful photography and everything. So thank you again so much, and thank you all for watching. And as always, please continue to take good care of each other.
Yes.